gets the job in New York this morning. 38 years old, the former Patriots special teams and wide receivers coach, Joe Judge, is going to be the man to replace Pat Shurmur with the Giants. They have yet to make it official. We can tell you, however, it is soon to be done. And the same goes for the Carolina Panthers hiring Matt Rule. He is leaving Baylor. He is taking his smock to the NFL, and it's going to be with the Panthers. There's an 8-figure buyout in Waco. David Tepper doesn't mind, evidently. Matt Rule to be the new head coach in Carolina. That, Ian Rappaport, now leaves one vacancy. Jimmy Haslam can pick anyone still left. Who does he want?
Any coach he wants in the world,
Any
except
coach
for all the coaches who have already been
all
hired.
the coaches currently in the world.
They have 3 coaches set to interview this week, Andrew. And an interesting name emerged last night from colleague Tom Pelissero. Jim Schwartz, the Eagles defensive coordinator, actually is interviewed for head coaching jobs in the past. Of course, was the former Lions coach, and the Browns want someone who holds players accountable. That is absolutely someone who holds players accountable. That is one option. They also have Kevin Stefanski, who was a finalist and nearly got the job last time. Of course, the ownership stepped in, and John Dorsey stepped in, and they hired Freddie Kitchens instead. And, of course, Josh McDaniels is still on the docket there, still slated to interview on Friday. For McDaniels, this has been a dream job for him ever since he was a kid. You'd have to make sure the structure is right there. I know he's going to want to bring in his own personnel man or essentially a GM from New England. Dave Ziegler would likely be the choice there. So those are the options right now for the Cleveland Browns. They also had a couple interviews last week. They can hire anyone whenever they want because there's no competition now, Andrew.
No, they can take their good old time. They can wait for any assistant. If there's an assistant still with the team in the postseason, they can take all the time in the world they want. Jimmy Haslam, you're on the clock, and it's an infinite clock. Thank you, Ian Rappaport. If it's Kevin Stefanski, he called a pretty good game this past week, including a Kirk Cousins fade on third down in the red zone to Kyle Rudolph that actually worked, but there might have been a push-off, and Cousins wasn't sure he got his feet down. Listen to Kirk Cousins on how he viewed this play.
I went over to the bench and sat down. And I sat there for 10, 15 seconds, talking to Clint Kubiak, the quarterback coach, just saying, hey, what's the thought here? What do you think of the drive? And kind of looking down. I wasn't looking up. And Kevin Stefanski came over after, what felt like a while, but it's probably only 15, 30 seconds, and said, Kirk, we won the game. And he walked away because he could tell I didn't realize we had won the game. So he felt the need to come over and tell me in his way. And so I looked up, and basically it looked like a post-game scene with media all over the field. And I thought, well, I guess we did. So,
Wild as good in Minnesota. Tom Pelissero, the backstory there is that Chris Myers wanted to do the post-game interview, and Cousins thought they were going to review it. It would take forever, and so he just went and sat on the bench. And then he found, oh, yeah, we won the game. We can celebrate. And now he tries to keep it going on a short week in San Francisco against the 1-seed 49ers.
That's right, Andrew. And the short week is important to consider here with the Vikings. Remember, the 49ers had a bye. They've had a ton of time to recuperate after that Week 17 win over the Seahawks. For the Vikings, they just got back from New Orleans on Sunday night. Players are back in the building today. This is kind of a combined treatment / lift / practice day. They're going to be on the field a little less than 2.5 hours from now, about 3 o'clock Central. That's later in the day than they would practice on a normal Wednesday. Next couple of days will be much more in tune with their normal practice week. Everybody in this building, certainly the people who were around 2 years ago, know how mentally, physically, emotionally there is a lot to come back from after a game like that. As for Kirk Cousins, he did speak with reporters a short time ago in the locker room. Didn't want to rehash too much about the celebration, about his latest "you like that" moment, about Mike Zimmer saying that part of the reason he gave him the game ball was to establish the fact that, yes, Cousins is their guy, and they did it. Cousins talked about this game, said he was just glad that they won against the Saints. All eyes now looking forward to the 49ers on Saturday, Andrew.
Yeah, and all eyes trying to cobble a secondary together as well. They did an amazing job because the pass rush was so good against Drew Brees. Most people thought that when Mackenzie Alexander was down, that they're not going to win there. Now Mackenzie Alexander is out again this week, Tom, as those injuries pile up.
That's right, Andrew. Mackenzie Alexander actually left today. I am told he is going to see Dr. James Andrews and have arthroscopic surgery on a small tear in his lateral meniscus. Now, the rehab timetable unclear until after they do the surgery. He's going to be in pre-op tomorrow. He'll actually have the surgery on Thursday. Potentially could get back if the Vikings are able to advance in the playoffs, but he will not be out there on Saturday against the 49ers. Mike Hughes, of course, who went on injured reserve last week because of a neck injury, also will not be out there. Mike Zimmer had a really unique plan last week that worked out well with Andrew Sendejo, who's a box safety playing the nickel corner spot. How do they approach things this week against the 49ers? We probably will find that out on Saturday. I did get a chance to catch up today with Holton Hill, very talented outside corner who has had some off-the-field issues, was suspended for half this season. Hill said in that cornerback room, that DB room, everybody knows nobody wants to hear any excuses. They're going to have to find a way, regardless of who's out there, to compete with a very talented 49ers offense. Andrew.
Amazing how that morning we wake up and the story was the Vikings corners, their health. By the end of the day, part of the story was the Saints corners and the fact that they were pointing fingers on the sideline. Thank you, Tom Pelissero, there with the Vikings as they get ready for the 49ers. And let's go there now. Santa Clara on your screen for NFL Now. It's a different story, Steve Wyche. The 49ers defense is getting healthy this time.
Yeah, Andrew, look, the bye week did this team a lot of justice. They had a week 4 bye in the regular season. They needed to get healthy, and they could be getting back 2 key components, but the emphasis is on could. Let's start with defensive end, outside linebacker, pass rusher, D. Ford. He has missed the past 3 games. He only played 11 games this season, mainly because of hamstring injuries. But he is a speed pass rusher, which would be important against a team like the Vikings, which we saw last week against the Saints, really bounce some things out to the edges. And we know, Andrew, some teams that have played the 49ers without D. Ford said they tried to get their quarterback out there because the 49ers did not have necessarily an edge guy who could get out there in pursuit. But also, there is linebacker Quan Alexander, who has been out with a torn pec injury. He actually tore it right around the same time as Houston Texans defensive lineman J.J. Watt tore his pec. Well, we saw Watt come back in the playoff game last week against Buffalo. Alexander could be back. Again, could be back in the division round against the Vikings. His speed, his ability to cover, and the fact that he arrives with such force would be huge against a physical team like the Vikings. And if he comes back, it also allows the 49ers not to have to do a lot of substituting because their linebackers, including Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, are so fleet of foot.
Yeah, that would be huge if they could get those pieces back. Steve, all throughout the season, a lot of people have doubted the 49ers, but I think they've doubted the quarterback, or maybe said, show me more. Right? Jimmy Garoppolo, show me more. Well, here's his big stage. What's he saying? What?
Yeah, look, this is the biggest question mark coming into the game in some people's eyes for the 49ers. We haven't heard from Garoppolo yet. We'll hear from him probably in about an hour. But look, he's somebody who's played in a lot of big games this year. Think about the clutch performance against the 49ers, the way he got that fourth quarter touchdown in Week 17 against the Seahawks, a lot of the defense to hold on. So the fact he's played in so many clutch games and close games this year could help him. But his teammates have said all season long they've got confidence in what he has to do. It'll be very interesting. We know he's gone to multiple Super Bowls as the backup with the Patriots, but this is his first time on this type of stage. We'll see if he can have the type of composure he's shown in the big moments in the regular season at the most important time of the playoffs.
We will find out early. This is the first game of divisional weekend in Santa Clara on a Saturday. Steve Wyche there. Football that had to make you feel good that they beat them like by jumping in a time machine and just ran and ran and ran.
Yeah, the Titans are looking a lot like we used to look back in the early 2000s with Steve McNair, myself, Frank Wyche, and Derrick Henry. Man, he is just having a phenomenal run going back to last year, leading the league in rushing this season, having a phenomenal offseason right now in the postseason, derailing the defending Super Bowl champs, something that's tough to do in Gillette Stadium. And they did it in gritty, grimy, ugly fashion. I mean, around the country, people say, oh, it was an ugly game. But to me, it was a thing of beauty. It was a Picasso for me. And so I really enjoyed watching them beat up on the Patriots the way they did last week.
When you guys made your Super Bowl run, Eddie, you carried it 29, 26, 25, 28 times. That's Jeff Fisher football, right? The last 2 weeks, it's been 66 carries for Derrick Henry, going back to Week 17 to get into the playoffs. Don't they need to do that again this week to keep the ball away from Lamar Jackson.